east, west, above, below, and within, and to the cycle of life of African ancestored peoples, those who've gone on before, those living and those yet to be born. Because they were, we are. Because we are, they will be. Welcome, virtual audience, to part 2 of the March on Washington Film Festival's closing event for 2022, the State of American Theater Executives Roundtable. I'm Issasara Bey, Artistic Director. Allow me to extend our deepest appreciation to all of our sponsors, but especially to Tiffany Sanchez and Reginald Brown for making this event possible. They love art, culture, and history as much as they love the enrichment of our people, and it's always wonderful to have their support. Recently, I heard a song by Nicholas Payton. It's called Jazz is a Four-Letter Word. And in it, he says, I'm dealing with the ingenuity and the genius of Black folks. I don't separate Charlie Parker from Michael Jordan from Michael Jackson from Aretha Franklin. We have to put it in the proper perspective because all of it exemplifies the genius of our creativity. So I started making connections of my own in the context of this year's festival and our theme, story, stage, and screen. I don't separate Charles Randolph Wright from Eubie Blake, or our gala honoree George C. Wolfe from Oscar Micheaux, or one of our performers, one of the original SNCC Freedom Singers, Rutha Mae Harris, from Miriam Makeba, because both use their voices to galvanize the grassroots to fight for justice and equality. Taking it a little further, I don't separate the people about to take the stage now from their predecessors, Douglas Turner Ward and Robert Hooks, who founded the Negro Ensemble Company in 1967, and then before them, the African Company at their home space, the African Grove in Lower Manhattan, founded in 1820. As I put this afternoon's program together, I saw concentric circles at play. The people assembled today have mentored and been mentored by each other, or have worked or are working together now on different projects. They fill many functions: administrator, instructor, producer, director, actor, writer. They are wearers of many hats. They are the chief make it happen officers. At the heart of it, we are a continuum bounded by the soil of Africa and the Americas, by spirit, blood, sweat, and tears, by the word, and by our love for humanity and respect for each other. It is my honor to bring to the stage Molly Smith, Arena Stage, Nicole Salter, Howard University Theater Arts, Maria Manuela Goyanes, Woolly Mammoth, Jamil Jude, Kenny Lyons True Colors Theater, Camilla Forbes, the world famous Apollo Theater, and our moderator, Donna Walker-Kuhn, Walker International Communications Group. The mic is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Issasara Bey is the consummate producer. The March on Washington Film Festival is so important. It's so critical for us to have an arena where we can tell our stories with total authority, authenticity, and honesty. The piece that Charles presented just now, just the excerpt from that, was brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So this afternoon, we're going to have a lively conversation, and I can say that because I've had a chance to interact with each of our panelists who are absolutely amazing and at the top of their game in the arts. And so one of the points I wanted to just share before we get started in the conversation You know, in American theater, we're at a really critical point, kind of an intersection of moral, financial, and the health crisis in our country. We see it reflected in multiple ways. And I believe we have to really develop the courage through this crisis and beyond to address the interests of everyone. And so we look at theater, who has access to theater, how we decide what we're going to present on our stage. You know, all of those factors are now becoming really, really important. And so how do we make sure that our actions and our work are aligned with where we are in 2022 as a result of a pandemic, as a result of Black Lives Matter and the murder of George Floyd? What's next? How do we reflect this in our work? And so this panel, you know, under Isisara's leadership was developed based on the efforts that each person has been making in their craft, the idea of celebrating audiences, bringing in new audiences and new stories. And so we're going to talk about what each of them are doing. I'm going to ask them questions, and then we're going to talk and explore what's next. So I'm going to start with Molly. We're in your home. Thank you so much, Molly. We love this theater. It's beautiful. So, Molly, it's been 2 years since We See You White American Theater, and perhaps you can talk a little bit about that. So what is the climate within the Broadway and regional theater community with regard to addressing systemic racism and building a culture of equity, diversity, and inclusion? You're about to retire. Congratulations. So what words of wisdom would you also give to the next person in your role?
Great questions and big questions. We live in an ahistoric time. And just going back into your first question, which has to do with We See You White American Theater, which is a really important document that I think everybody on this stage is following in one form or another, or finding areas of real resonance. But I want to take you back in the same way that Isisara did, to all the way back to August Wilson, the ground on which we stand, which is really the precursor for all of this and isn't mentioned very often. But it was a brilliant piece that he wrote. I heard him give the speech, which was at the Theater Communications Group, which is a big umbrella group over all of the theaters. And then he also had a flat-out argument with Robert Brustein on stage in New York that was all about these ideas that had to do with cross-cultural communication, that had to do with multiculturalism, that had to do, from his point, of being a race man. And that's the beginning. That's the beginning of that. And that is, what is that? That's like 27, 28 years ago, right? And so that's my concern about the time we're in now. The time we're in now seems to be ahistoric. The time we're in now, oftentimes, people are coming in saying, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to make this happen, we're going to make this happen, without any knowledge of what's come before. And what I would say to anybody who's coming in to take over any of these wonderful theaters that exist in the not-for-profit movement, we now have, I think, 12 to 1,400 of them around the country, is know the legacy, know the history, and then build on it. Because we have so many smart, talented, focused, amazing artists here in America, and we don't need to be tearing each other down. And right now, the theater in some ways is eating its own. And finding ways to really be able to build on it in the same way that Charles Randolph Wright, with this absolutely brilliant piece, built on the whole stories of Frederick Douglass and took us to another place. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And I'm looking forward to a great artist who will come in to Arena Stage, who has the vision, who has the guts, who has the tenacity to work with a board, a staff, and a community that I think will welcome them with open arms. And I ask that the community absolutely does that. and to recognize that we all need to have the freedom to fail. Because the only way that we grow as artists, as administrators, is by understanding that you need to be able to fail. You fail up. You don't fail down, you fail up. You have to try things, you have to make things happen. They work, they don't work, that's okay. Let's make sure that everybody joins together with all of these great theaters around the United States that are changing leadership right now, and support the new leadership that's coming in, and remember whatever those legacies are, so that we can build on what Zelda Fitzhandler and Doug Wager did here at Arena Stage, or did at any of the other great theaters around the country. All boats rise.
Thank you, thank you. Camilla, the Apollo Theater has a rich history dating back to the Harlem Renaissance. So what are you, as executive producer, doing to change the future? What obstacles have you faced? And an institution that is identified as Black, what does new audience mean to you?
Great. Well, just to give some context, the Apollo Theater is an 88-year-old institution. And as I love the fact that we talked about, you brought up and elevated and amplified the era of the Harlem Renaissance, because most recently we are right at the cusp of celebrating the 100th centennial of the Renaissance, is what we've done as a part of our season. And that was very strategically done for a lot of reasons. And I think it also speaks to my history and my legacy at the Apollo right now at this moment, which is building on our legacy. One of the hardest, I think, one of the hardest challenges coming into this job is that it is an institution with great brand recognition, an institution that many people find and understand or have a history with. And so when you come in imagining a future, it also requires, it is moving a great ship of many peoples and who have various different entry points to the institution, various different entry points around what they believe or what their own personal experience is to the Apollo Theater. I would say that as being sort of one of the biggest challenges. But I believe a big part of, like I like to say, is that my purpose and our leadership at this point in time is how do we look at our institution, moving it from reverence to an institution of relevance. And that is where I'm grounded. That is where we are rooting ourselves right now, looking at a Black arts institution for the 21st century. Now, one thing, as I think about reverence and relevance and building on legacy, brings me back to the Harlem Renaissance. Harlem Renaissance was born out of a moment of where we as a country were just on the heels of Reconstruction. We were coming out of a very fascist government. Our art at that moment in time, or I should say, there was a major piece of art propaganda that was screened at the White House, and we are at a film festival here, and that film was Birth of a Nation, right? That film was regaled by President Wilson at that period of time, and also during that time, Wilson, and then that administration also began to turn back, resegregate our institutions, resegregate our councils and agencies, but also turn back the times of Reconstruction, right? And we also had a great pandemic during that period of time with the Spanish flu, right? So all of this sort of led to the birth and the conditions around the Harlem Renaissance. Sound very familiar to where we're living in now? I believe, and we are rooted as an institution that, and I will use the words of my brother Mark Bamuthi Joseph at the Kennedy Center, that art creates culture, but our culture absolutely does affect policy. We as cultural arts institutions and cultural art makers have to understand and embrace our place as not only creators of beauty, but creators and shifters of policy of our landscape. So we take, to answer your question, the idea is how do we look towards history in order to find our own inspiration, right? And that's ultimately what we're doing at the Apollo in this time period and place of building a true center, a national center for the Black imagination to thrive, because we do believe and sit on the fact that, as all of us do here, that culture truly is our currency, but it's our responsibility as culture bearers to lead that charge forward. Yeah. I'm not quite sure if I answered all your questions because there was something else in there that I think I forgot.
I just talked about obstacles, and you may have addressed that in the legacy component, but if there's more that you'd like to say, please do.
Well, I mean, I think, some of the biggest obstacles, one of the biggest obstacles I think that we're facing as an institution that's situated in Harlem is that, what does community mean to us as we begin to expand? We're heading into right now a major expansion, our first expansion in a physical expansion in our 88-year history, and that we're occupying 2 new theaters to the west of us, and we're also expanding to the back of us, right? This is a major opportunity for a Black arts institution of our size and scope in Harlem, as Harlem is changing around us. Gentrification is very real. So as we think, what does community mean to us? What is our purpose? How do we root ourselves? Who are we there to serve? These are very big questions that I believe, 50 years ago was a very different kind of conversation. 20 years ago was a very different kind of conversation. But I think it's important that we as leaders and artistic leaders are asking ourselves these questions, not in a static form, that we've asked it, it's on our mission statement, but it's constantly evolving because our world, our community is constantly evolving. So I would say that question about community, who and what we serve, is a very big question for us at the moment.
It requires tremendous nimbleness
Absolutely.
as well. It sounds as
Absolutely.
if you have your hands right on it.
That's exactly right.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you. Maria. Hello. Yes. So what is the function of new ideas and fostering new work by artists of color? How does the Woolly Mammoth define new audiences? And what are the dynamics working in Washington, D.C. as a Latina cultural leader?
Oh man, those are all very big.
Yes. Pick out what you like.
I know. No, I because I want to hit all of them. Woolly Mammoth is a very different theater than these large, legendary theaters, Arena and the Apollo, right? Woolly's been around for 43 years, which is a long time here in Washington, D.C., but we are nimble. We are a small theater that was meant to be an alternative to the mainstream. It was built like that. That was the whole idea behind it. And it's interesting to me because I'm only the second person to have this job. The first person, the founder, amazing man, Howard Shawitz, had it for 39 years. I've had it for about 4. But one of the things that I think about, and Woolly has gone through a massive transformation in this over those 43 years, is that it was actually a predominantly white theater in a historically Black city. And when I look at that and I look at the innovation that has occurred over that time at Woolly Mammoth, who gets to experiment? Who gets to try new things? Who gets to be the avant-garde? Who gets to actually, this is the thing that I start to think about. And when I think about new work and what Woolly is here to do, particularly with artists of color, is to actually provide that platform, to actually take that medium and do the kind of aesthetic innovation, right? Because we're assuming, thank goodness, that amazing organizations like the Apollo and Arena and the Public Theater in New York, Oregon Shakespeare Festival, led by Nataki Garrett in Ashland, right? All of these amazing tentpoles of the nonprofit regional theater are the tentpoles. And what we want to do is actually bring up the next generation and the next generation and continue to actually be that kind of leading edge for the field. And try to think about that for trying to, so that artists like Michael R. Jackson, who just did Strange Loop, won the Tony Award. Listen, that show would not have won 5 years ago, would not have won 15 years ago, would not have won 2 years ago, right? But public opinion had to change and move. The cultural landscape had to be open. The world had to catch up to Michael R. Jackson. And the world caught up this year. And that's an amazing thing. So what we're doing at Woolly is trying to actually create spaces for the next Michael R. Jacksons, right? And a lot of folks in the Black theater, I think about Adrian Kennedy. I mean, they were doing things that were like incredibly, incredibly forward thinking. And even in my community, in the Latinx community, Maria Irene Fornes is having a massive resurgence. And I would say anytime you get to go see a production of Fei Fu and Her Friends or any of Abingdon Square and others, please go see it, because just to build on what it is that you all are talking about, that's the legacy of actually innovation in our field. When I think of my Latinidad, I think of, so my mom's Dominican, my dad's from Spain. So colonizer, colonized, very, very interesting combination. But the thing that I think about is we have a problem in the Latinx community, which is that it's a race issue. There's no question. Basically, we're in this war about speaking about folks who look like me and have a skin experience like me, who walk through the world, who don't have to show anybody my Latinidad, and the black folks, the Afro-Brazilians, the Afro-Cubans, the Afro-Dominicans, et cetera, who are erased over and over in our Latinx community. It is a huge, huge issue. And so I feel really grateful to be here at the March on Washington Film Festival, because the values, the ideas actually that are embedded within the civil rights movement are actually like, my community is right now actually in the middle of trying to talk about it and trying to actually find the language, the commonality, the ground to actually open these doors and say, we have to actually allow the fullness of what Latinidad is to live and breathe and be represented in our world. I think I got all your questions.
I think so. One question, maybe you can go a little deeper. How do you define your new audience? What would that look
You know,
like?
this is the part where I'm a little bit Pollyanna, right? Because the fact is that I just want everybody to go to the theater. I just want everyone to go to the theater. There is something in the theater for everyone. Everyone. And Washington, D.C. is a great example of that, right? You've got Arena, big musicals, meaty new plays, power plays, etc. You've got Wooly, he does the weird stuff. Come and see some weird stuff. You got Signature in Arlington, Virginia, new musicals, a lot of new stuff. You have actually so many different avenues, and that ultimately you will find a place. And I guess the thing that I feel like I want to do is evangelize for the theater in some ways, because I just want someone to go and actually feel that transformation that you can have. And just because something isn't for you doesn't mean that there isn't something for you in the theater, right? Just because one show isn't for you, it is not a transactional relationship in the theater. It's a relationship like this, in front of you right now, right? We're having a conversation together, humans to humans, right? So when I think of new audiences, I really dislike the sort of like, we need to bring in the Latinx community into our theater. How do we do it? We're going to program Latinx work. Yes, of course. But I actually think that this is about sort of making the case for the theater. That's what needs to happen right now since the pandemic. We're having a hard time bringing them back. And so the thing you can do if you love the theater is bring people to the theater with you and actually help turn people into theater people, because everybody will find something in the theater. I promise you.
Thank you, Maria. I think the last point in particular is so important because, yes, theaters are trying to figure out how do we engage more audiences, and certainly what existed pre-pandemic. But I would also offer that as a result of the pandemic, we now get to define what our new normal is. And so we get to craft what will that experience be. And I believe community engagement is essential to that. So just as you mentioned, not a transactional experience. We come in, buy a ticket, see it, and go home. But there's a real relationship, and that's because the theaters themselves have also engaged with the community and asked the hard questions and taken the work to where people live and asked them, what would you like to see, and try to deliver against that. So I think this is a time for us to think about how we present theater differently, how we can make it more organic and authentic. So this is the moment. All of you here will be watching. We need you. So Jamil, our gentleman for the afternoon, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Jamil, How do we expand the look and complexion of American theater in a city like Atlanta, which has a large black population within a predominantly white southern state? How do you address white producers who don't want to do more than what they've already done?
The second half of the question may be a little antithetical to some of the conversations that we've had here, but I just don't mess with them, honestly. And I have that privilege of it right now, actually. You know, like so I was telling an anecdote earlier about my first experience at True Colors. Up until then, I had experience work in different cities, D.C., Minneapolis, some others as a freelance artist, and as a young arts administrator, producer. I was always kind of told that, oh, well, you're only going to get X number of percent, not going to make it above 50% of BIPOC audiences, black audiences, or whatever. Told a lot of what ultimately became BS. My first day on stage at True Colors, we seat 375 people, and there was an audience of 350 people there to see a preview performance, and 90% of the audience was black. That's over 300 black people in the audience for a preview performance. I recognized at that point that I had been lied to. I had been lied to for a decade of my career, and what would have happened, what kind of artist, what kind of cultural worker could I have been if I had been given that as a reality at the beginning? So now in Atlanta, where my audience is still 90% black, I recognize that I have a freedom to operate, to tell intra-cultural stories, intra-community stories that we often don't get chances to see because the spaces that have been created weren't proper vehicles for it. Now at True Colors, we can have a conversation around what respectability politics has and has not gotten us, right? Where sometimes in some spaces we want to whisper about that. We can shout it, and we can shout at each other, right? We can actually have real talk that we know we talked about culturally that exists in barbershops or exists inside family tables, inside churches, Sunday dinners, and things like that. We want to invite everyone to feel like True Colors is their Sunday dinner table, and that we can talk about all the things that we want to talk about, and that anybody who is not interested in that is not invited. If you're interested, we're going to roll it out. We're going to welcome you. We aren't going to change how we act when you come there, because we're going to be us, but you're welcome. You're welcome to bear witness. So if you want to bear witness with us, you're welcome. But if not, we're going to continue to do what we do, and we have been doing well. True Colors celebrates 20 years this year. We're in the midst of what we're calling, thank you. Yeah, we're in the midst of what we're calling a 3-year cycle of our Sankofa seasons. A journey forward begins with a look back and a return to retrieve. So in this year, it's all about reclaiming ours. What are narratives that have been lost to the sands of time? What are narratives that have been misconstrued, misinterpreted? How have we been turned around against each other? And what are the ways in which we need to reorganize as we look forward into the rest of the 21st century? So I'm thankful for that. I feel really blessed to be at the helm of an organization that in a city that is all about that. Shout out to my Kappa brother, the Mayor Andre Dickens as well.
Thank you. We're happy you're at the helm as well. So thank you. Nicole at Howard University and other things as well. Nicole, you've had a significant impact in theater, film, television, and as a writer and as a producer. And now you are also an academic. Yes. So what is a typical day at work like for you? And what do you see as your primary role guiding, nurturing, and teaching the next generation of theater artists?
Okay, Ms. Donna Walker-Kuhn, you're going to have to back up. That is so, okay. What was that first question?
So first, just tell us what's a typical day. What do you do?
I survive. I answer the next email that is shouting at me with that little exclamation mark that I haven't responded to. I put out fires. I think about stories and the development of stories that have been conjured in my mind that have not been vomited out yet. And I write little notes on Post-its everywhere. And I hug people who are in transition from adolescence to adulthood to about 7-8 times a day. I nurture tears. I provide accountability. I galvanize. I mean, come on. I don't even know how to answer that question anymore. It's overwhelming trying to maintain the artist mind and the beginner's mind and the strategist's mind. It really is. And I just want to applaud all the people on this stage because that's exactly what they do. I wish I could say I was more organized about it. I'm sorry, I feel
also
very
just started.
vulnerable right now. Like,
But Nicole,
you
didn't
all were so
just-
eloquent. I'm like, it's really hard.
But Nicole,
really
didn't you
hard.
just start?
I did just start. Yes, I did just
Okay.
start.
I just want to put this in context. It's not like
yeah.
you've been there 30 years.
No,
and
no,
you're
no,
still
no. I've been
exploring.
here 8 months, and it's been a transition between being an actor on stage. I did a show co-written by Tom Hanks this past summer, while also fighting against or preparing for a labor union strike at my school. You know, like it was just a lot of balls to juggle. But what I will say, the anchoring point is, if I can offer that, which just brings me back to the second part of your question. I'm really a person that believes in the narrative as the fundamental technology for humanity. It is the software to the body's hardware. There's not a single person who can experience their own identity or their relationships or life itself outside of a narrative. So I consider what I do very important as a narrative offerer. Now, the narrative to me is a powerful thing in two ways. It provides us the opportunity to reflect and therefore bring consciousness to the ways in which we want to evolve. But it also provides us the opportunity to project and practice what we want to become. And so when I think about the anchoring point of my life as an artist, as an educator, as an advocate, as an administrator, it's how am I providing support and space for the powers of narrative to be harnessed in their fullness and used to their potential. I do that in curriculum development. I do that when I create space for myself to tell my stories. I do that in my research as an academic. I do that as I empower the other faculty members and artists on my team. I do that every day, all day. That's all I do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Amen.
I hope I recovered. All right.
So I have some questions also I'd like to ask you, all general questions, so you can answer if you feel it's relevant to what you're doing, what you're thinking. You know, I think for everyone here, we might appreciate understanding more, what is the most important step that you've taken to advance your career? What did you do?
Stop waiting for permission to do what I know how to do.
Excellent. Thank you.
And defining myself as a service worker. Who am I in service to? Speaking to what Cam was referring to, Ms. Forbes, who was
Cam is
referring
fine,
to
you know.
before, and why do they need my service, and how do I get my services to them? I mean, that's one of the things that we're offering our students at Howard University is the opportunity not only to become interpretive artists, but to really acknowledge their function in society, whether you're interpreting a text that has been written on your behalf, or whether you're devising something, or whether you're improvising something. Like, the narrative itself is the gift.
Thank you. Anyone else want to talk about that?
I don't know if it's an advancement to career specifically, but I think just a philosophy of leadership I've just really begun to embrace. And it's a little quote by Toni Morrison. I believe she said this to Oprah. But she said, whenever you step into rooms of power or positions of power, allow yourselves to dream a little. And I take that to heart as, obviously we do that as creatives, as a director I do that, because you dream about the world, right? The black box of the theater is your canvas. Yep. But the real question is, how do we do that as leaders? how do we do that as artistic administrators? How do we do that when we're faced with budgets and schedules and union strikes and, you know, transitions and capital campaigns? How do we make sure that we are dreaming about the future and making sure that that is being embedded into our plans? Not just this opportunity to sustain, because I don't believe that's our responsibility. It is our responsibility to move forward, to thrive forward. And so I've really been taking that note to heart. You know, again, how do we really put the creative, artistic language into leadership? Yeah.
Wow, excellent. Thank you. So what are you all excited about? What are you working on now? It keeps you up at night, dreaming, smiling, making your heart sing. What is that?
I want to answer two questions in one.
Okay.
Because I love that first question, too. When I wake up in the morning, I think, how can I be useful today? How am I useful to my family? How am I useful to the theater? How am I useful to the people that I'm working with? How am I useful to the artists? I probably ask myself that 4 or 5 times a day. And that kind of helps me form things because it brings it down to something and it removes all ego. And I love that. So outside on the wall, out on our building as you were coming in, my final production here at Arena Stage will be My Body, No Choice. And this came because of what happened with Roe v. Wade with the Supreme Court. I was devastated. I was like, here we are. We're back at being second-class citizens as women. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I woke up and I thought, okay, I know I'll make a theater piece because that's what I am. And talked to my good friend Charles and talked to my partner Suzanne and talked to my family and friends, and boom. So we're commissioning and have commissioned 8 women playwrights to write monologues about things in their lives around their bodies that they have either made a choice with or not being allowed to make a choice with. And those monologues are being performed now, will be performed by 8 different artists here in the Kogod Cradle, and I'm setting it up as a consciousness-raising room. Very much like women's consciousness raising, which happened for me in the 70s when we would meet once a week and we'd talk about our bodies, we would talk about feminism, we would talk about how we moved in the world. The difference is, at that time, it was private. We kept our shame private. Now I'm opening it up, so it's now public. So this makes it modern, because I think the only way we move past what women are feeling right now is to speak our truth and tell our stories and allow other people to tell their stories as well. So we're also having on the wall of the Kogod Cradle, outside, yellow stickies where people can put up on the wall, I had an abortion. I was pregnant and lost the baby. I had a breast reduction. I had a sex change. I drove my friend to have an abortion. And there's a whisper room where you can whisper and tell your story. So there's people are coming out, they're able to do that. And now there are, I think, 15 universities and theaters around the United States that are going to do one-night readings of this around the country. It's all based on 18. It's 18 days, $18, because to vote, you are 18 years old. So this is, it's a protest, it's a demonstration. I'm really proud of my theater with Edgar Doby, with our whole production staff, with all of our marketing, because this all just came together like that. And that our board, everybody else, is responding to it, because this is a moment when women need to tell their stories, and they're going to be told now all the way to Florida. There's one happening in Virginia. There's one happening in Texas. There's 3 happening in Arizona. It's going to happen all over the country, because this is a moment to speak out.
I want to jump.
Fantastic.
This is also Molly creating creating the envelope for people to do their own activism from every single generation of women. And so one of the women who is doing the monologue is our current New Work Fellow, Fatima, who just graduated Georgetown. She is a young Black woman who is now doing her first show ever with Molly Smith, with all of these other playwrights that are have massive careers, and she's getting to do that. So this is I just also want to give you by choosing the people around, you're creating also an envelope for the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. You are doing the work, Molly. It's awesome.
Did anyone else have a comment about?
Yeah, if I can, I want to talk a little bit about things that are happening at True Colors. First, I want to say again, thanks to what we call our super producer earlier, Ms. Isasara Bay. She attended an event that True Colors started, the Next Narrative Monologue Competition. We've been running a monologue competition for 14 years, focused on high school students, introducing them previously to the work of a singular Black playwright, but now we've been opening it up and commissioning contemporary Black writers, so introducing students in their high school years to the dynamics and the future storytelling of contemporary writers. We've been able to partner with the Apollo and had our first annual festival back in the end of May at the Apollo, and our students had a chance to travel up here to the March on Washington Film Festival, get involved with everything that's happening here, see what that advocacy, using your artistry for advocacy, looks like, thanks to Isasara, and that's been really amazing to me. They performed on yesterday, and speaking to just fitting inside of this festival, we've already heard from the students that it was a transformational experience. In a couple of years, True Colors also in our Season 22, we'll start a new 3-year cycle called Blackness is Not a Monolith, and I cannot wait to dig inside of what that is going to be, where we're just trying to uproot all of what people expect Blackness to look like. We just want to present what have always been narratives, right? We always can go find them, but we have to go find them. I want to present them and allow people to come to us. So Blackness is Not a Monolith will be Season 22, but we'll finish out Sankofa here over the next 2 years.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, sure,
Looks like you were going to say something.
Oh, sure. Yeah, excited about. I can share a little bit of excitement in regards to, what we're doing at the Apollo. We just launched a new initiative a couple years ago, which is pretty major, I think, for our institution, which is always traditionally known as being a home for music. But really where we're shifting our focus is how are we a home for the Black imagination? And so part of that, and one of the initiatives we launched was called the 21st Century Canon Initiative, is making a major investment around building the canon for the next century that centers Black voices, so that what came out of that was a series of commissions that was lived across genres. Theater, we had close to 30 theater commissions. Dance, Camille Brown, the choreographer, was one of our commissionees as well as musicians and artists that are doing interdisciplinary work. So the real question that we're really looking to answer is how can we be the house for that kind of exploration, instigation, and investigation, interrogation with these commissions. The second part to that is we named our second master artist in residency. Our first master artist in residency was Mr. Ta-Nehisi Coates, or is Mr. Ta-Nehisi Coates. It's kind of interesting as an institution like the Apollo, known for music, and then you have a writer, but absolutely, again, because we understand that, we're really investigating the intersection between art and politics. So this spring we'll be launching the final installment of his residency with an Arts and Ideas Festival curated by him. So we're pretty excited.
And didn't you direct a piece with Ta-Nehisi?
I did.
Tell us about that briefly.
Yes, certainly. It was a piece that I adapted from his book Between the World and Me, that we staged as a theatrical event. It was scored by Mr. Jason Moran. We staged it at the Apollo in Atlanta, the Atlanta Symphony, and then here in DC at the Kennedy Center. We were supposed to move that work around, and then the pandemic happened, and also George Floyd. So we decided in the midst of the pandemic that this piece of art was so critical because if those of you who know the book, it is letters to his 13-year-old or 15-year-old son on the eve of the Mike Brown acquittal or the murders. So in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, we also made it into a film for HBO that aired in November of 2020. This film was made in 5 months at the height of the pandemic, and it was it's something I'm very proud of. It was a major feat. I'm looking at Charles. I called him right before shooting, like, how do I shoot in a pandemic? But it was a feat. But again, when I think about filmmaking, when I think about storytelling, urgency, as you're talking about, Molly, urgency is what drives many of us, and definitely myself. And that moment was urgent, as well as the need to tell that story.
And wasn't there a philanthropic component to that?
Absolutely. So
I'm asking because I want our audience to understand the breadth.
Sure. So to even back up, I think what ultimately happened with that film is there was so much interest when every corporation, if we transport ourselves back to 2020, every institution, corporation we came up with their sort of Black Lives Matter mandate during that time period. And a lot of times were these empty promises, were these empty, what is the follow-up around this? We knew we wanted to tell this story, to have this conversation around Black lives in America, of our children, of our brothers, of our sisters, and the saliency and how important that was. So we started pitching it around to networks. We pitched it basically to every major, Apple, Netflix, et cetera, you name it. And there became a bidding war for the film, for this opportunity, because everybody wanted to check the box. Yes. So in between that, we went back, before we closed our final deal for the film, we added an additional philanthropic component. We said that if you want the rights to this film, you ultimately have to make major investment and donation to 2 Black institutions that made this work possible, one being Howard University and the other being the Apollo Theater. HBO, Warner Music, and I'm proud to say is that HBO stood up, and they were the network that we ended up partnering with, and they made a $1 million donation to Howard University, as well as a $1 million donation to the Apollo Theater.
And that's the power that we have. Yeah. And that's what you were talking about at the very beginning. So utilizing the legacy from August Wilson, from making those points about who we are, from the piece that Charles produced that honored the legacy of, Frederick Douglass and almost 200 years ago, really making sure we understand what we can bring to the table. And so just in final 1 word, 2 words from each of the panelists, we think about what's next. What does the future look like? And certainly the Apollo has given us a model in terms of producing and philanthropy. That if you want our work, not only do you pay for the cost of it, but also you donate to what we feel is important. And we talk about what Molly is doing, where we look at a political issue and how do we use art and theater to raise consciousness about that in a very powerful way. We talk about in a city like Atlanta, where we are celebrating the fact that we have majority people of color coming to see our work and our stories. And we have so important to have academic, vision to see how am I raising the next generation and how do I bring my careers and my experience to that. And we have our voices from the Latina community, how important it is to recognize we need a playground. Artists need a place where they can just play. So there's not an expectation that we're all going to follow this traditional path, but I'm going to step not only outside the circle, there is no circle. And so, each of our panelists have really, I think, given us a vision of what the future is, because I'm always looking at what's next. So just briefly, we've got like 2 seconds. What's next? Each of you, please.
You want to go, Molly? Go ahead, Molly. I would say largely what's next is teaching people how to engage our work differently. Our culture has taught us all to be consumptive and to assume that what we're offering is entertainment primarily. But I think that there's a reason that I think all of the institutions here are 501c3s, like your churches and your schools. You don't go and say, entertain me. You say, come, please enrich me, even if it hurts. And so I think the future of the theater, but of storytelling in general, is to get people to use us not by genre, but by need. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comment?
Never give up. The winner is the last one standing. Find the people who can support you and help you, and you support them. And go for it.
I've been thinking a lot about being able to talk across difference. This is the thing that I feel like I'm trying to crack at a place like Woolly and the work that we're doing, right? Because the stuff that we're going to do is going to be provocative to somebody no matter what, right? Like, it is going to be that. So how do we actually foster those conversations? And it is so difficult right now to have conversations across differences. It's like, it's basically impossible. It feels like, given the state of our world. So I guess one of the things that when I got to Woolly, everybody was like, you're preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir. The only people who come to see your shows are just progressive, liberal people, you know, who are feeling the same way that you are feeling. And I was like, I'm looking around, and our choir is pretty divided. And so let's just actually acknowledge that and actually start to relearn how to speak to each other across difference. And one of the ways to do that is to see art, to see theater, to see things that are separate from ourselves, that allow us to actually talk about things and speak about the things that we need to be talking about. That's why it's like you're talking about in 2022, blackness is not a monolith. That sounds amazing, because you're going to be able to have some conversations that you aren't able to have right now within your community. So that's what I've been thinking about for the future.
We talk about thriving at the intersection of artistic excellence and civic engagement at True Colors, and that's an alignment that all of these organizations and producers have, and I think it's definitely the people that I've been working under and passing that down to me. So I think a lot about just consciously curating that, right? Like just being very specific, trying to see where the opportunity is for more conversation, more in-depth, more portrayals, more narratives. I think that's just where I want to be, and I think that's where the future is going to be. Like, maybe it doesn't look like, 10-play seasons, 7-play seasons. Maybe it's just like we're going to be very conscious about, we want to put all of our resources into this narrative because it's going to invite more people to a space, yes, so that we can engage with one another in a civic space, because, like Marie was saying, our dialogue is different. So how can we just be more selective in that curation piece of trying to find the thing that we all want to claim, that we all want access to?
Thank you. Thank you so much, panel.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Donna Walker.
Thank you,
Sarah Bay.
Thank you, audience.
Wonderful panel.
Thank
Please
you.
thank them. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You can, you're welcome. All right. Well, we're capping a wonderful 10th anniversary festival season. This has been so tremendous. All of the different ways we've been able to exemplify story, stage, and screen has been exciting for us. Our thanks again to our sponsors and partners, our board, our staff, vendors, and volunteers, our panelists, filmmakers, performers, and to our in-person and virtual audiences. I hope you'll allow me a moment for 2 personal notes. He's going to hate this. I'm grateful to our founder, Robert Rabin. Where are you? Yes. Guess what you have to do? Stand up. Thank you. Yeah, I know he loves this. Founder of our festival, for asking me to join you in making this something powerful and wonderful 9 years ago. Robert is a visionary, and he has given me the space and trust to express my creativity as well. Thank you. And there's one other person I want to thank. I want to see if she's in the room. Anybody seen my daughter? Did you put her to work? Yes. Bring her in here, please. While we wait for her, I want to remind you all that the Film festivals, our films, our special recorded presentations, and the live streams will remain up for one encore week, so there's still time for you to catch everything at www.marchonwashingtonfilmfestival.org or MOWFF.org. In case you've missed anything, and it's also time you can tell other people about it too. And so, she coming. Yes, it's no fun if you're not there to hear it, you know? So, there were so many things that were said here that sparked so many different pieces of conversation. And I'm hoping at some time in the future, we can find another forum with which to dig more deeply into that. For example, when you talked about, we all talk about intercultural, but intracultural. I don't know if you all know what that word means. I'm going to give you an example. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My parents were born in South America, in the only English-speaking country on that continent. There's the conversation between African Americans. For example, I didn't taste collard greens or grits until I was in my 20s, but fufu, I know. Curry, I know. There's also the language differences. Afro-Latinos, those that speak French, those that speak English. In New York City, I'm a block away from Little West Africa. So all of that is something we want to have in our conversations and in what we think about. And the other piece of the festival that was very important, I see someone here who was a part of that, is we then took Story, Stage, and Screen into the present and into the future. We've had a virtual reality salon, and we had artists who are just learning about virtual reality in our lab, as well as fellows who are completing projects in virtual reality, not just in gaming. Now it's going to be part of everything. And so my final thank you is I'm grateful to my daughter, Makara, who has come in. Makara and I adopted each other 25 years ago, halfway around the world, and I thank you for loving me, being willing to love me, and for my being able to love you and you being open to that in return. I am grounded and nourished and uplifted by our family. Thank you all, everyone. See you next time. March on.